I love how YouTube makes me wait to make sure that it's muted so that we're not dealing with echo, 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 echo. Well, it looks like everything's set. We are live on a Tuesday night for Talk Time with TJ, number 187. Welcome to Planet Triple T. It's been a week. Can you believe it's already been 7 days since the last time we were here? Seems like it was yesterday.
It's been a whirlwind.
Yeah. My name is TJ Zebel. I like to call myself a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with, yeah, I will never claim to know everything, but I do have this unique way of asking people questions that will lead them to finding the solutions they're looking for. Yes, been a day. But do have to do a shout out to YouTube. Hi, Mom. For the rest of you out in YouTube land, I'm so glad that you're here. And if you're watching the recording for the first time, thank you so much. Please do all of the YouTube stuff that doesn't cost you anything other than a couple of little clicks, but it sure helps me out. Click that subscribe button, ring the bell so you know when we're back in action. And please go back, check out some of the archives. We talked about this last week, and leave some comments. I love seeing them. I ain't gonna lie, I'm a typical dude. Like to see if I helped you out at all. Also got a website that I would love for you to go check out. See if you can see what we've changed this time. The address, theTSWB.com, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com. And in there you're going to find a little bit of what I do. I have the privilege of helping people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief, relationships, money challenges. I get to work with athletes from beginner all the way up to the pro level. I do offer corporate coaching, so if you got any businesses that seem to be struggling, one thing I found out, the people that are running those businesses, the COO, the CFO, the CEO, all them OOOs, they're still human. Go figure. So, I also do offer a free, that's right, no charge to you, 30-minute consultation. That's your opportunity to chit-chat with me for 30 minutes, see what kind of challenges you're up against. And if I can help you, I will let you know. And if I don't feel that we're a fit, I promise you I also will let you know. And I will do my best to find one of our fine other people that would be a better fit for you, because we, in the end, want to make sure you get the help you're looking for as quickly as possible. Breath time. Yes, it's been a couple of days, like I said. But first, time to introduce the tie of the week. That's right, I wear a different tie every day for the year, and started it first Tuesday in 2024. Still going, and I found out I've got more ties than there are weeks in the year. So this one, some of our favorites. Oh yeah, look at there.
I feel like it's so appropriate when you wear Winnie the Pooh, because I often call Tuesdays like Tiggerific Tuesday. So they always make me smile.
And they're all partying, having a good day.
I guess.
So the other way I like to start out Triple T is hearing if anybody's got something cool they want to share from the last time that we were here. Tell me something good.
Mark, even though you're in the middle of pizza.
Yeah,
I'm chewing.
making me hungry.
Mushroom pizza.
That
God
sounds
gift.
delicious.
Isha.
I wish it was gluten free, but it wasn't.
Huh.
But yeah, I don't know. I've had 4 new clients.
That's
Um,
exciting.
yeah, and they're all doing again. They're all pretty much this. It's all guys, and they all have relationship issues. Go figure. You
Mhm.
know, the last guy tonight at 5, I hit him. I hit him with a fire hose of stuff. And you know, he knew nothing prior to coming to see me, but
Mhm.
uh, I'm gonna, like I said, young fella, same thing, well, 33 years old, second relationship. He has no clue. um, um, Relatively speaking, so we'll help him to the extent that we can,
Mhm.
make them life takers and heartbreakers.
Good answers.
Very awesome. I definitely have had some changes. And Mark, what I thought you were going to mention was the awesomeness of your reunion. The reunion that you went to?
Oh, my 50th high school
Yeah.
reunion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bunch of old fossils. Couldn't believe it. Unbelievable. These guys look like they were on their last legs. High school, again, supposedly, home of future leaders. And only one guy actually made it to the stratosphere of corporate America. Supposedly we were, but I took my own path with my own, you know, and I had, but yeah, I recognized one guy, and he was the successful guy who was there with his wife, you know, and but yeah, all they could talk about is their ailments, their retirement, their operations, either previously or currently, and I'm like, I got nothing to talk about. I'm good,
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't have any artificial pieces, and I'm in really good I guess shape, when compared to my peers, you
Mhm.
know, and it ain't all to do to good living.
Mhm.
um,
Very
you
awesome to
know,
hear that.
but these guys, like I said, they were, again, they again, it was nice to connect. I'd never been to a high school reunion before, and I figured 50 was a big enough number. I figured, but it was educational, to say the least. High school. I
Yeah.
showed Lenora a picture that I had, and I was like, "Who is that kid?" He didn't know his ass from his elbow.
He's got it down now. He's good now.
Well, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Like I said,
Any
I'll
day then.
any day, it's gonna all kick in.
That's
That was about it.
awesome.
Like I said, but it was fun to go. It was fun to, like I said, comparatively, my best friend from high school didn't show up, but that was the only drawback. But nice dinner. The young kids that were helping out, they couldn't believe how young, how old I was, and what a great grip I had, and I had them crying uncle. It's like, well, if you live right, again, you can, but they want to know what I was doing, and I told them, and gotta pass along your wisdom to the youths.
That's right. To the Utes.
I'm so glad you said youths and not young bucks. Thank you.
They're again, but again, I think this generation is much in need of guidance of, the wise and, the experience, kind of like TJ, you know. So the young men of today are pretty lost, I think. And
Yeah.
so they need us old guys that are warming our bones by the fire and trying to teach them how to hunt, at the tribe. So
Yes.
they need us, TJ. They desperately need us.
I still need the old trainers because I'm like I say, the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know.
It's one of my favorite phrases. The more
Yep.
that I learn, the less I know.
Yep. Lenora.
I love that phrase. That's such a good phrase. Um, when you had said about being in another space and seeing people's perspectives and stuff, it's so true. And when I was at HTL, I felt really, really great, especially being in a group where we had so many things in common. You went in knowing you had things in common. And I think that really is what elevates going to conferences. It's not trying to get to know somebody. You already know the people for the most part, not all of them. You get to know, you get to meet new people, but you know that generally you are all on the same wavelength. And I think it really makes a difference because especially when somebody's standing there complaining, it can be really difficult. And one thing that I have learned, and I'm just going to lightly touch on it rather than bring it up, hi, Renee, rather than dive too deep. I didn't realize, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts were as the whole group. There are so many times, by the way, that I have talked to all of you in my head during the week. And I'm like, I wonder what they would think about this. I wonder what they would think about this. And then naturally, I forgot to write it down. I did not realize, and I'm curious to know if you guys notice this in your own lives, the way that you think and the way that you naturally are, as of today, you unintentionally activate people or quite literally trigger them. And even in your most sincere approach, you're almost coming across like you're attacking them, and you're like, but I'm not. I don't know what. And it's startling to me because I know how gentle I am because I go above and beyond to be sincere, but also to be consistent and authentic and to avoid anything in the bitch, arrogant, know-it-all territory. And I find that there are certain people that I'm still activating despite going to another level and trying to be sincere. And I didn't know how you all respond to this or what your go-to phrase is to kind of just take a step back and be like, okay, because it is what it is, doesn't settle with me.
No,
I know this is like an
actually,
hour two question.
yeah, that's a great hour two question because I have so much on that.
Oh,
I've
good.
it numerous times. So yeah, keep that question written down, and we've got a starter for hour number two.
Okay. I see Mark offering something too.
No, I'm
Yeah.
sorting through gigaquads of information. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
Okay.
I've definitely done it, and I'm just starting to notice to not take it personally, which I feel like is a very big step, a very personal big step, rather than thinking, what did I do wrong or why don't they like me? I'm now going, oh.
Yeah.
So, yes, thank you for sorting through the gigabytes. I appreciate it, and I will hold till hour two.
No, it's gigaquads. It's
Gigaquads. Is that I
a
take it that's
thousand times more than a gigabyte.
Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate that.
Information dump right here on Triple T. And for those of you that were watching and felt the explosion of knowledge slamming into your aura, you're welcome.
Yeah, I have another one. All right, I'm just gonna clearly write it down now. Holly, I have an energetic question for you too.
And a couple of the squirrels were throwing. Oh, by the way, if you're new to Triple T, Yes, you will see us having squirrel attacks all over the place. We have squirrels who know squirrels that bring squirrels that know squirrels who have questions and topics. So, um, in response to Mark talking about, yes, helping out, uh, that's the stinky squirrel.
I
That's the
have a
one.
I have a squirrel, like a stuffed animal squirrel around here somewhere.
Yeah, I've got one outside that the dogs play with. But
We'll go with my sloth.
Mark, when you were talking about your new clients and a couple of them in relationship, last night while we were having supper, every now and then we'll float through YouTube stuff, and on Family Feud, he was in South Africa, and one of the competing families was all ladies. And while he was interviewing them, Steve asked the one lady, "Are you married yet?" And she goes, "No, there aren't any men." And he goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't speak that into existence. That's why you can't find any men." And he went into talking to her, and I was like, "That's right out of the Triple P playbook." He goes, you gotta speak into existence. Are you married? No, not yet. Uh, you got to write down a list of exactly what you're looking for. And he was getting pushback just like we do. And he goes, "Well, what kind of guy? What do you want in a guy?" And she goes, "I just want a guy that's humble." And he goes, "And what else?" "Just humble." He goes, "Oh, so he can look like Quasimodo crossed over with Frankenstein?" And he starts walking around. He's like, I'm very humble. Yes, and that she's looking for me." He goes, "You got to write everything down." I'm like, good. Even Steve Harvey agrees with Triple P.
Love Steve Harvey.
Oh, he's a riot.
He is.
Well, I suppose we should probably get into the topics for people that are thinking this is a chit chat zone. Um,
I was
for
gonna
the,
say you didn't even mention it in 717, so
yes, so for those of you that are tuning in for the very first time or watching the recording for the first time, the way Triple T works the very first hour, we do our best to try and get through 3 topics that I come up with. Um, so far, last what, 4 times we've managed to get through one. But that's the first hour. When we top out on the first hour, and the second hour, that's when we change paces and it becomes open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic, and I have all the people on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. So, without any further ado, let's get into the topics of the night. Tonight's topics are CDO, Chub Chubs, and silence. And those that know me are going, this ought to be interesting. CDO, anybody know what CDO is? Yes, and what is it?
obsessive compulsive order in alphabetical order, the way that it should be.
That's right, OCD, alphabetically the way it should be. And there are a few things that I'm a bit CDO about. And there's a lot of places where you want people that are CDO. Brain surgeon. I want that surgeon to be CDO to the max. And what what are a couple of other ones that when I said that came to you guys' mind? What else do you want CDO? Mark,
Accountant?
accountant. Yes. A CDO accountant is a very good thing. Mechanic, especially if you're now if you're just having him work on an old piece of junk lawnmower, it doesn't have to be quite as CDO as if he's working on your Corvette or your yeah, yes. See? Well, this came up because I'm in the process of hooking up a Generac for the property, and I decided I've been wanting to put a gas cooktop in the kitchen since we bought the place because we've got a gas electric cooktop. And decided as long as we're doing that, what are the four most expensive words in any project? While we're at it,
Ah,
yeah, so while we're at it, I decided to run gas lines to quick hookup valves on the back deck for grills or possibly an outdoor kitchen. And
Fire
the
pit.
25-year-old kid that was putting it in, he's the son of the owner, so he grew up with it. He knows what he's doing. He's very knowledgeable. But he admitted that I'm probably the customer who has done the most work with him and was the most CDO and had the most out of the box ideas of how I wanted things run and everything. And when we were hooking up some stuff for the on the side of the house, I was pointing out, no, I want this turned this way a couple more degrees, and I want to make sure that this is. I said, stand back there, and is this all lined up this way? And it took him a little bit. He was like, what? And I pointed out what I was looking at so that all the lines were in line. The copper lines, everything from different angles, everything had its composition. And when he finally saw it, he goes, "Oh, oh, yeah, move the regulator just a little bit." I said, "Now you're seeing it." I said, "The it takes just a little bit more attention, but it gets you higher results." I've done finished carpentry. I've owned a photography studio. I've done a lot of things where attention to detail and being CDO, the more CDO you were, the better the payoff. And it got me thinking, what are some of the things that we can improve our level of CDO in our life and in our thought processes? One of them that came to mind was self-talk. Being much more in tune with the words that are being said in our head. Now, anybody that's been around Planet TJ long enough knows that I call people out all the time for negative self-talk. And I give them full permission to call me out on the same thing. And I've been caught a couple of times. That's how easy it is to let that stuff slip out. Mark.
I know of what I speak because my mother was borderline CDO, to use a new term. And you know, she used to clean before the cleaning girls would show up because I can't let them see a mess.
Yeah.
But I got a window into that whole world or keyhole look inside that whole world. One day I showed up, we were going out to lunch, and she had one teacup, and the dishwasher was empty, and she rinsed the teacup, put it in the dishwasher, and started the dishwasher. It was the only thing in the dishwasher. And as we're driving down the street, I was teasing her a little bit. I said, "Are you afraid robbers are going to break into the house while we're gone? Look in the sink. Go, oh my God, a dirty cup." Well, after telling me to shut up, she said no. She said, every moment I would be gone from the house, it would bother me that it wasn't where, the house wasn't clean. It wasn't where it's supposed to be. And that gave me a great look inside the world of CDO.
Yes.
If it's not just right, like with your, with the pot, it would bother you tremendously. Okay. So, and I have a little bit of that every once in a while. My wife calls it, and then I clean the house from stem to stern, and I can't stop until everything's right. It kicks in. It's the genetics. It's the training. Every once in a while I get it, but, for the most part, I am, but it can, like anything, whatever you bring to the table, use it basically. If you can use it to be, to have positive self-talk, or you can be a little bit more circumspect with some things, it's probably not a bad thing.
And yet people look at my office and they go, how in the world can you be CDO when you have that? And yet I know where all that stuff is, and each thing is set in its own little way. And there is over the top, I'm not going to say destructive, but like you were talking, Mark, with worried about one teacup. I don't take it to that level, but when you do finish carpentry or photography, it's what sets you apart from the competition. When I first bought the photography studio, I just enjoyed taking pictures. And the gentleman that I bought the studio from, John Yerka, had actually a master's from Brown's Institute for Photography. And so he was the one that honed me in to notice detail and composition and lighting and all the other stuff. And it's one of those where if you're not trained in it, you don't see it. You can look at a couple of different pictures and there'll be one that you find more pleasant, but if you're not trained, you wouldn't be able to explain why you feel it's better. It just looks like a better picture. And I think it comes down to the training as well into our thought processes and our self-esteem and things of that nature. There are so many people out there who know that some days they feel a little better and sometimes some days they don't. And they can't really pinpoint what's the difference. They don't understand the power of the tribe that they're part of, or how they grew up with, or the things that they say to themselves or out loud about themselves on a regular basis. And they can't understand why they're not accomplishing what they have the potential for. They don't understand why they're mad or depressed as often as they are, until they get to work with some people that have training like we do. And then it's the process of awareness and the decision and the choice to change it, and the ability to stay with it. Cleaning up our mindset and setting our trajectory for a different lifestyle, I think is very similar to changing your body and, diet and exercise and eating right and all these things. If you grew up not really understanding all that stuff, you may have heard of it, but you come from a place that either makes fun of it or doesn't believe in it, chances are you're not going to be nearly as healthy as you possibly could be. And I know some people that have gone from horrible lifestyles to starting to realize that, yeah, this isn't working. And all of a sudden they get to the point where they're CDO about their lifestyle. They're the ones that actually read the ingredients list on stuff and go, yeah, this ingredient does not go in my body. Nope. Yeah, I'm exhausted, but I've gotta get my workout in. God bless my wife, because she'll be the one that I'd been on like 4 or 5 cruises, and I'd heard that there was a gym on those ships. I thought it was a myth. She found it and made sure she got her workout in while we were on vacation. She invited me. I'm not CDO in that department. I'm more relaxified in that department. I do 40-hour fitness, which is what I've been doing the last 2 days, and my body is reminding me that I'm not 18 anymore. And when you put in a 14-hour day out in 96-degree weather, digging trenches and putting together black iron pipe and all that stuff, yeah, I don't do it every day. But like I say, the young man that was there working with me was impressed, because I told him, no, I haven't done gas work. I've got a background in plumbing and all of that stuff, and all of my lines had to be 90s and straight and all this stuff. And so, any ahas, epiphanies, input on CDO so far? Holly.
First of all, can you hear me okay? Or
Yes.
okay, good. I have a few thoughts. So first of all, I don't know, I probably said this before, but I actually have an official diagnosis of OCD. So there'll probably be a bunch of people in the comments, how dare you say this is offensive? And, I will say for me, I actually appreciate when people are willing to talk about it more as a spectrum, because it kind of makes me feel more normal. So just throwing that out there to just kind of, for that conversation. Also, spending time around TJ, I wouldn't be surprised if he also had a diagnosis of OCD. um, there are two kind of sides to this. Because I don't know how many of you have seen the documentary 6 Days to Air. That's about the making of South Park. This is kind of the flip side of it, and I'm gonna tie back. But it talks about when it's appropriate not to be OCD, basically. The time when it's basically they talk about they want to be in real time, and they could spend time making it a little bit better. I think they talk about spending 2 more weeks to make it 5% better. But they've discovered it's much more important to just get the product out there, just get an imperfect something out there. Yes. And get it in real time. And then they could talk about something that happened that week in the episode they air that week. And so, but at the flip side, I've had the privilege of being in events where TJ specifically has, spent that time to, maybe make the sound that little bit extra better or make the environment that much better. And it makes a huge difference. And so I kind of was thinking about it, like, I think a big part of it is, first of all, are you in a place where you're trying to, you're making the perfect the enemy of the good? Are you in a place where you're not doing anything and you're, suffering from paralysis because you're afraid of not making it good enough? If that's the case, go to, that 6 Days to Air, go to that. I got to just put something out. It doesn't matter what. Or are you in a place where you're trying to make either something that's meant to last, or you're going to be spending a lot of time in it, or also are you in a place where maybe people are going to be healing or doing something very vulnerable, and it could make a difference to make it a little extra special, a little extra polished in that experience, so that when they're vulnerable, they've got a little bit, nicer sound, nicer environment, whatever it may be. So I just thought those could be some good guidelines of when to go to the, I'll say it as CDO. Whenever I hear that, I'm like, I'm not compulsive disorder obsessive. What are you talking about? But I get it. But, if you want to go to the CDO, there are times when it's appropriate, as TJ was saying. But if you're also in that place where you're in paralysis or you're letting, the perfect be the enemy of the good, go to that 6 Days to Air attitude of just get something out there. It doesn't matter what. It's better to have something than nothing.
As always, I am so glad you're on here, Holly. We really miss you when you're not here. And yes, there for some of us, my wife has gotten to understand now, there will be times where it seems like I'm procrastinating on a project, but because I'm CDO, I will sit there and think about all the different ways that I can do it, so that when I finally get around to the project, it is done the best way that I know how. The problem or the challenge or whatever you want to call it, sometimes it takes so long because paralysis by overanalysis for one, and I think Dr. David was probably the one that said it the most. An imperfect something will always be better than a perfect nothing. An imperfect something will always be better than a perfect nothing. And I've seen that a number of times as well, where you're working so hard to make sure that the product is perfect before it gets out, and yet your competition just put out 15 different projects that are 80% as good as you want yours to be before you put it out. They're beating the pants out of you, and you're like, well, yeah, but that's not nearly as good as mine. And the people go, yours isn't even out yet. They're making money. You're making changes so subtle that we don't even know really what the changes really did. You're the only one that did. And sometimes you just got to get the stuff out there, or get the stuff out there and call it version 1, You know, it's like my list of who is TJ. Now I'm on version 10, but I had to get something out there. So, Mark, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I have another mom story. She was, and for clarification's sake, she was not clinically OCD, um, but she was borderline. So the end result is we had a spotless house. But one Sunday, um, I woke up. I was working second shift, so I slept into about 11, 11:30. I got up, rolled out of bed, grabbed the paper, went into the reading room, and was sitting there. And I came back and my bed was made.
Yep.
And I walked out to the kitchen and I said, "Really?" I said, "Someday I'm going to wake up and you're going to have made the bed with me in it. And I'm going to wake up under the sheet and go, ah, what am I dead?" she, she said, "Shut up, kid." Anyway, but yeah, like I said, and the fact that, like I said, if you're, again, persnickety, which could be another adjective for,
Yes.
uh, you CDO, again, it can translate. Like you said, you were, experienced in plumbing, so gas isn't that far. So once you've gotten to what you would an acceptable level of proficiency, with your tendency for, to do that, that could easily translate to, natural gas or whatever. And I think that those things can be, um, again, sometimes those skills, once they've been mastered to a credible level using your CDO, can generalize, that's the word I was looking for, to other skill sets. So, like I said, it can be very useful.
I'm so glad you told the story about the bed, and I'm sure Mom's watching and laughing because there was a time when
There.
I moved back home shortly and I was bartending. And so I would get done with work at like 2:30 in the morning by the time we shut down, cleaned everything up. And I'd sit out in my car in the driveway at my parents' house just to chill out, relax, mellow out, because our town of 187, when we closed down, the town was shut down. That was it. There was nothing going on but the rent. And so I'd finally fall asleep about 4, get woke up like 8:30, 9 o'clock, which reminded me that probably be a good time to do a bathroom run, grab a glass of water, go back to bed, finish sleeping, and my pops was the one that had made the bed. And I'm like you said, Mark, like, what the what? And he goes, "Well, it's time to get up. You can't sleep all dang day." And I'm like, "I've only been asleep for like 5 hours. You guys got 8. I would like a couple more." "Well, get to bed then." I said, "When's the last time you came home from work, walked through the front door, went straight to the bedroom, and climbed into bed?" I can't do it either. I'm working late. So yeah, I got some of that CDO from my pops, but there's also, I learned the difference, or the ability to be happier when it's clean enough to be healthy and dirty enough to be happy. Clean enough to be healthy, dirty enough to be happy. You don't have to, like, this drives a real CDO person insane, because how are you going to dust all of those things when I get around to it?
Aren't they called tchotchkes or decorations?
Yes, and I got plenty of them.
I got sons too.
Yeah. My photography studio, my second one, was in an old house, And every wall in that house was covered way more than this with pictures. Every little space had a picture in it. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. But my wife, on the other hand, this is only allowed in my office. So that's CDO. Anybody? We might actually get through a couple of topics tonight. You guys ready for Chub Chubs? Does anybody know what a Chub Chub is? Nobody?
I think I know what it is.
Chub Chubs, if you get a chance, Pixar did a little animated short that they hid inside of the menu on Men in Black. And if you go on YouTube, you can find some of it, but I've noticed that there's like 6 or 7 options for Chub Chubs on YouTube. You have to find the longest one. They cut off a couple of them, and it is the cutest, funniest. And if you grew up anywhere in the 80s, if you're a Star Wars fan, this much. If you watched E.T., if you know who E.T. is, you're going to love this thing. And I don't want to ruin it if you've never seen it, but I have to bring up a good portion of it to be able to explain why it's a topic tonight. And the basic of the story is this guy who's a custodian in this bar, and he just wants to help people, loves to sing, but he just can't seem to get a break. Every time he tries to help somebody, it goes bad. And so he gets chucked out of the bar, and all of a sudden, somebody comes up and says, "The Chub Chubs are coming!" And the guy's like, "What?" And the guy goes, "You don't understand. The Chub Chubs are coming. Everybody's got to go." And he's like, "Oh." He doesn't even know what a Chub Chub is. So he goes to try and warn people, and it still goes bad. But the guy that warned him manages to slam into the bar, scream out, "The Chub Chubs are coming," and everybody in the bar knows what that is, and they freak out, and vamonos. Leaving him out there trying to escape, all of a sudden he sees these cute furry little things. And if Elijah, you must be watching it. There is so much detail hidden in this short little film that I know I must have watched it now 100 times, and I still see little details that they hid. Whoever put this together was brilliant. But he has compassion for these tiny little creatures, and he looks out and he sees in the distance trouble coming. And so he hides the little creatures, and the trouble, boom, they're here. And he does the best he can to diffuse, "Hey, can't we just be friends?" And they're not having it. And he trips over where he's hiding the little creatures, and these massive, scary creatures, the problem, all of a sudden they scream, "Oh, Chub Chubs!" It happens to be these little creatures that he thought were innocent and cute, and these little creatures turn into vicious little animal, and they tear these big people up, and they come back and they love on him because he, A, wasn't afraid of them, and B, was willing to protect them. And they become his best support. Like furry little Cuisinarts. I know you guys are going, what? Please watch it. The reason I brought this topic up wasn't just because I want you guys to have access to another amazing, wonderful little film, but how nice is it to find somebody that will back you up to the point that they are your little Chub Chub? And yet you got to be a little careful about the information you share with them, because they will want to rip the head off of anybody who comes up against you or says something bad about you or makes you feel bad or all of the above. And you're like, oh, did the Chub Chub come out? I've got Chub Chubs inside of me. I've got some peeps that if I find out somebody intended to hurt them or scam them or take from them or whatever, my Chub Chubs want to just and stuff. And I gotta keep those little guys under control.
They look like Care Bears. They're so cute and cuddly, and they flip. I have it rolling, and they're adorable.
I remember when that came out, they actually have action figures for the Chub Chub. But they've got they've got action figures for the Chub Chubs, they've got action figures for the big attack people, and I didn't even know that about the movie. In fact, I find very, very few people who have ever even heard of it. But everybody that watches the movie, the little short, loves it. So my question, now that you kind of understand the concept, who do your Chub Chubs get reacted to, protect, and watch? And do you have Chub Chubs that want to have that same veracity to protect you? I've seen so many clients that are willing to be a doormat because they don't have that Chub Chub inside of them that goes, you know what? No, we're not taking this. You're not going to treat me like this. I'm not going to stand for this. I don't deserve this. And gives them the power to move on. And so my wish for some of those clients is to install a little Chub Chub inside of them. When somebody wants to wrong you, you don't go, oh, well, that kind of sucked. I feel bad. Now I'm going to go home and I'm going to feel bad. No! Stand up for yourself. As long as it's not going to put you in physical harm or, in danger, let people know. Well, what if they don't like me? If they're doing that to you, they don't like you. Because they wouldn't do that to you if they liked you. or at least they don't like you enough. Any ahas, inputs, epiphanies on Chubs? Lenora?
I feel like this goes hand in hand with what I was talking about earlier today.
Funny how that works, doesn't it?
That is ironic how that works. I did not see that coming. But they're adorable. And what's funny is, as you were saying, and then you had said it, because there are times where I want to respond back when people, like, for example, somebody last week was very hurtful, and I wanted to respond back, but I didn't, because I wanted to be nice. I didn't want to be a bitch. I didn't want to be arrogant or come across in any sort of other way. And it's almost like maybe here's the other thing. I don't know when to properly address it and to say that's not okay. Because if I do it in the moment, if I did it in the moment last week, it would have not been good.
Yes.
So I didn't do anything. And even the way that something had ended, it's almost like I gotta calm down my own chub and then have another version of me execute on the mission.
One of my squirrels just popped in and reminded me of a story that my Taekwondo instructor and his wife are both multiple level black belts and had won multiple competitions and things of that nature. And Master Roy and Master Teresa. And Master Roy told a story about how one night some loser decided that he wanted to start a fight with Master Roy and had made the mistake of also slandering Master Teresa. She lost it, and Master Roy is trying to hold her back. And this guy goes, "What? Now you're gonna let your wife take care of your heavy work? You're just too much of a wimp to want to fight?" And Master Roy goes, "Dude, I'm protecting your life right now. If I fight you, I will hurt you. If I let her go, she will kill you. That's the difference. This would be a good time for you to leave." And the guy's like, "What, for real?" And then he saw the look in Master Teresa's eyes and realized his life was in danger. And to his credit, he was smart enough to leave. So Master Teresa's chubs were in full force. Holly, you got your hand up.
You know, it's funny. It's the more I live, the more I realize how many things come down to healthy boundaries. And, there's a couple steps to boundaries. So first of all, I'm learning that there's two different kinds of people you have boundaries with. And I know there's a spectrum always for everything and whatever. And I'm using this term colloquially, not diagnostically. But I call them narcissists and, normal people. Dr. Ramani talks about, there's narcissistic behavior, and then there's like people who have narcissistic personality disorder. Not talking about the second category, I'm talking about the first category. Anyway, when you're dealing with somebody who is highly on the narcissistic behavior scale, that's somebody who wants control, not connection. And sometimes we make the mistake of thinking they want connection. And if we tell them they're hurting us, they're going to care. And they don't care. In fact, they might care, but they might, enjoy it because that proves they have control, that they're hurting you. So then you have other people who are normal that, actually would care and feel bad that they're hurting you. And anyway, when it comes to people who are narcissistic, for both categories, step one of a boundary is communicating the boundary. And, sometimes that's the hardest part is we have to know what the boundary is. And if we haven't actually figured out what we want, and then step 2 is we have to have a consequence for violating the boundary, and we have to follow through on it. And if we don't know what the consequence is, we can't follow through on it. And usually it's good to have, I've thought about it, having escalating consequences. So consequence 1, the first violation, is a verbal warning, because maybe you didn't realize you crossed the boundary, unless it's like a major boundary. But if it's, a minor boundary violation, 1, you get a verbal warning. 2, maybe I'm going to leave the event, and you get 24 hours of no contact, A third one, maybe you get a week of no contact, that sort of thing. But you have to know, what do I want? And what am I going to do if you cross that? Because a lot of people, it's just, if you cross the boundary, I'm going to let you know you hurt me. And then I'm going to wait for you to tell me how you're going to respond to that. That's not a boundary. That's not an enforced boundary. Now, if the person's normal, they might care. They might talk to you. They might try to make it right. But if they're a narcissist, they're not going to care. They're going to get off on the fact that they're just winding you up and that they're making you use your own energy against yourself. Anyway, so yeah, the number of things that come back to having healthy boundaries, communicating them, and having consequences for them, and how much peace of mind it gives you when you know what, this is what I want. I communicated it. I followed through on the consequence, and now I can let it go because I've, communicated it and I followed through, and now that person can't bother me anymore. I'm out of their control now. It's amazing what a difference that makes. But another thought that I had, because I was thinking about, like, that's what they're going to come out and do. I need them to come out and enforce the boundary. Because if I don't do that, then they're going to get scared. They're going to get emotional. They're going to get all this other stuff, and they're going to come out when I don't want them to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd rather have them come out when they're told, hey, this is when you're supposed to come out. But the other thing that came to my mind is I was thinking about when I'm looking out for other people. There have been a couple times I was tempted to stand up for other people and just come unglued and unleash, you messed with somebody I cared about, you're going to get it. And I just had this thought, this is not your place. You didn't get invited in. And I looked at it and I realized, you know what? This other person already learned the lesson they were supposed to learn. They already communicated the boundary. They already changed their approach. And if I stepped in, it's none of my business at this point. They've already made it right. So I think the important, that's been so hard for me to learn because it's somebody I care about, somebody I want to protect. And I don't know the whole story. I don't know, later on when the person may have apologized. Or what they did to make it right. So yes, if somebody I care about comes to me and they want, help with a game plan, I am there. But until I get invited in, it is none of my business, no matter how much I care about them. Maybe they just need, somebody to talk to vent to. And if that's what they need, that's what I'm going to be until they tell me they want something else. And that is hard for me to learn, but I'm slowly learning it.
Yep. One of my other clients is learning the tiptoe back and forth of the line for boundaries. She got really set on boundaries for a bit and was lucky enough to get rid of some people that definitely were taking advantage of her and needed to be out of her life. And then started meeting new people and had those boundaries right at the beginning. These are the things I will not stand for, just so you know. People are like, okay. And realized that she was knocking a lot of people out of her tribe before she really had a chance to get to know them. But for people that have been around, especially, we know there always seems to be somebody that doesn't understand boundaries or social acceptance and things of that nature. So I'm so glad you brought that up. But that brings us just past the first hour. And hey, look, this week we got in 2 topics. So Now it's time for the second hour. If you're tuning in, if you tuned in late or this is your first time with Triple T, now it's time to shift. It's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic. And I have all the people on the call answer first because I like to learn as well. And the cool part is Lenora already has a question for the
Well,
second hour.
conversation is still going, so this is perfect.
We're gonna pop it right in there. So if you could reiterate your question the way you did earlier, then we can
Bananas.
line.
I know Mark was downloading a bunch of what was it? It wasn't a gigabyte, it was a trilobyte. I forget what you called it.
Gigaquads.
Gigaquad. Very specifically, well, here's a good one. When would you unleash your own chub? And I think this is something that I'm learning to navigate. I thought I was doing really good, and then I just had I had a lesson over the last couple of months, and Michael Childers. I always butcher it. I always confuse it. So you had said a couple of weeks ago, and I think it's one of your claim to fames, give my lessons to me gently.
Yes.
And
say that every morning.
And I've said it many times, and I think of you, and I think, give my lessons to me gently. And I do think this lesson was given as gently as possible, which I'm very, very grateful for. And it was just noticing things over the last couple of weeks. And I would say like the last maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And it just started to highlight. And I'm like, oh, that's why I sat in this class. Oh, that's what this is. So it's like, they'll say you can't connect the dots going forward. You can only connect the dots going backwards. And I love that quote. I think it's a phenomenal quote by Steve Jobs. And it led me to thank you for the gentle lessons that continue to flow to me, because I did not even know it was. Because here's the other thing, and I feel like you all know this about me. I tend to be very soft, and I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt. And that little voice inside that's like, you should be cautious. And I'm like, no, you're being a brat. You need to be kind, and you need to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I don't know where the line is, and I'm still trying to figure out the freaking line. And this also leads me to, when you're having boundaries, which part of you is holding the boundary and who gets to speak up, I guess. So how do you learn it? What are your thoughts? And also, when somebody else is losing their bananas on you and you want to not take, that was what it was. You want to not take it personally, because you're literally able to go, oh, okay, this makes sense. What are some of those go-to phrases? And Mark had messaged me, and I loved what he had said. And he said, everybody has to follow their own path. And I thought that was a great one. Unleash.
So really quick on losing your bananas, when somebody goes off on you, losing their bananas. 2 things. So first, Selma Hayek. Who likes Selma Hayek?
Yes. Oh, that's a good one.
So she's amazing, and she's like, when somebody starts like cussing at you or doing whatever, just picture them doing it in a foreign language,
Yeah.
because then you don't know what they're saying and it doesn't hurt you. And you might just laugh at them like, wow, that's really interesting, and
That's a
just let
good
it go. And then this weekend, I did a little seminar, which was really cool, with my wife. And this guy comes in who's like a world-renowned kind of mediator. And he goes into this whole story, heat versus heart. They both contain the same letters, except heart has an R, right? What does the R represent? Respect.
Oh, it's like restriction.
respect. And so when somebody comes at you with their drama, someone you love or whatever, then you can step back for a second and then take it into a different place and say, look, we're not going to frame it in your attack mode. We're going to take it in the spect that I love you, and you're going to treat them like an adult and with respect. And so it moves it into a different realm, and then you can have the discussion without you fighting back as hard. I thought that was kind of cool. So heat and heart, and it's the R, which is respect.
That is a great one. Thank you.
Mark.
Yeah, you know, when someone's, like you said, having a drama moment, you don't have to join them. But you can kind of take the wind out of their sails if you say, can you say that again? You know, and you can flip, they might repeat it, and because sometimes we don't catch the words before they fall out of our mouth, but then you ask them a question, you ask them to repeat it. Now they're thinking about it. You say, did you mean to hurt me with what you just said? Because what you just said or did, hurt me a lot. Did you mean to hurt me with what you just said? And a good percentage of the time, Michael's nodding, they'll say, no, that's not what I meant. And that can be, like I said, when they lose their bananas, as your favorite phrase, just say, wait a minute, stop. Can you repeat what you just said? And then you say, did you mean to hurt me with what you just said? Because what you just said really hurt me a lot. Is that how you meant to communicate? Well, however, you went afraid of it after that. But like I said, a lot of the time they wanted to say something, they tripped over their mouth, as I do a lot. And then the other one is sometimes people will want to bring you back to an early version of yourself. But as you continue to evolve, some people want to drag you back to the person that you used to be, rather than accept that you're up here. And if they just got off their dead ass, they too could become more and evolve. But it's easier to judge, criticize, and try to drag you back down to who they originally thought you were before you began this journey. So sometimes you have to leave them behind and feel good about it. So those are my two thoughts. Those are two of the more, those are two of the louder squirrels.
Do you have or does anyone have a go-to phrase when it happens so that you don't take it so personally?
Talk to the hand. No.
Read between the lines.
Was that the 90s or
Talk
the
to the
early
left
2000s?
because you ain't right.
Oh, but I'm
Oh, look.
I would just, like I said, I just think, again, validating communication sometimes can clarify things, again, I guess you're going to have to leave a lot of people behind that, on your journey. So, and they're going to be jealous, and they're going to be, they're not going to be happy that you're becoming, and, it just means that they're frustrated and, at what they're not becoming. So they're going to try to drag you back down. Don't let them. Sorry, all full up.
Peace out. Holly.
Yeah, peace out. That's a good one.
So I think I've shared this before, and it may not work in every circumstance, but one question I like to ask myself is, wait, am I a pink dinosaur with purple polka dots? And what I mean by that is, if you get, now once again, you've got your spectrum, you might have somebody who's just in a bad day or whatever, but A narcissist, what I've noticed, and like I said, I'm just using that term as somebody who's using narcissistic behavior, and it could be somebody who's not always a narcissist, but they will throw whatever they can throw at you until they find something that bothers you. They don't care if it's true. They don't care if it's necessary. They don't care if it's useful. They don't care about any of that. They just want to care if they're getting under your skin, basically. So if they could take a supermodel who's the skinniest person on the face of the earth, and if they call her fat and it bothers her, they'll call her fat. They could take the smartest person on the face of the planet, and if they call them stupid and it bothers them, they'll take it. So I just imagined somebody one day, I don't know why this came into my mind, I imagined somebody yelling at the top of their lungs, "You are such a pink dinosaur with purple polka dots." And I was just thinking about, first of all, is that even a bad thing to be? No, they haven't established that. And second of all, is it even true? No, it's not even true. And so I think that visual, because it's all the anger. Often what I'm hearing is the anger. And so like my mind immediately assumes that because they're angry, what they're saying must be true. And I'm not saying I don't always, sometimes I still fall for it, but I'm automatically assuming it must be true, it must be valid, it must be bad. And sometimes when I think about that and I imagine them yelling at me, accusing me of being, a pink dinosaur with purple polka dots, all of a sudden, first of all, it makes me laugh a little bit. So it takes me out of it a little bit. But second of all, it suddenly reminds me, you know what? There's a chance that what they're saying isn't even true. And there's a chance that even if it is true, it's not bad. Because a lot of times the things people get so mad at me, like for instance, if I hold a healthy boundary with somebody, and basically I was engaging in enabling behavior and I stopped enabling their bad behavior, they're going to be mad about that. But that's actually a good thing. They're being mad at me because I'm having the courage to hold a boundary with them.
Yep.
But, and then some of my follow-up things that I like to do. So then I'll do like a role reversal of, if I were in their shoes, would I ever say this to them if our roles were reversed? And if I would, there's a chance, because sometimes the reason I think that sometimes we're primed to listen to this stuff is because once in a huge while, someone might say something hard that we need to hear. So I don't want to just dismiss everything anybody ever says to me that sounds harsh. But they might even be right, but they're still wrong because they're not saying it in the right way. So maybe there's something I can learn from it, but I should be learning from it by imagining, if I were to take this to, if I swapped and I were to say it to them, what would I say? Or then the next step I say, if I were to take this to my tribe, if I were to take this to Lenora, if I were to take this to TJ, if I were to take this to Mark, anybody in this tribe, what would they say about this? And then another step I'll sometimes do is I think I've talked about this one a million times before too. I will divide them into 3 people. And then I'll do a second step after this. But so I divide them into the bad person, the hurt person, and the good person. And then I'll say, how much of this message is coming from the bad person? How much of this is coming from the hurt person? And how much of this is coming from the good person? And then I have, because, I came up with this from 3-chair therapy. I will look at so for those who don't know about 3-chair therapy, I'm sitting here, I'm talking to them. So I've divided them into 3 people, but there's also an observer. So then I'll check in with the observer because, the good person might have good intentions, but they still might not have good understanding. And the observer might have better understanding. And so, and I will also say too, one of the things I've learned if it's somebody engaging in narcissistic personality disorder, I've learned I have to be the tattletale early on. Because one of the things they do is they escalate so basically I think this is called triangulation. But what they'll do is, imagine that you've got a table and what they're doing is they're performing for an audience. So they poke you under the table. Then they poke you under the table. Then they poke you again under the table. And what they do is they prime you and they feel to when you're just about ready to explode. And then they poke you above the table. And everybody else sees you get poked above the table. So they know you got poked, but they think you only got poked once. So they think that the poke was inappropriate, but they see you explode and everybody around the table wonders why you exploded and overreacted to the provocation. So by tattletaling every time they poke you under the table and doing it in a sweet way and taking all the responsibility, they realize they can't get away with poking you under the table because you're drawing it to everybody's attention. And so their strategy's not working.
Yeah.
So, let's say they say some passive aggressive comment to you. Well, let's just say they're giving you dirty looks or something. And this is kind of a weird one, but say it's a mother-in-law situation and the mother-in-law gives you a dirty look. A way you could call that out is you could just say, I know you're being really sweet to me and I'm sure it's all in my head, but I felt like you kind of gave me a dirty look and it gave me a lot of anxiety. So I'm just going to need to go outside for like 15 minutes because I just need to get my head back on straight. So you took all the responsibility for it, right? You said it's probably all in my head. But she knows if she keeps giving you dirty looks, you're going to say that every single time. So then when you explode later, it doesn't look like you're, responding to one thing. You're responding to all of these looks that were in your head, but you still mentioned every single one of them. So I know that sounds like a little silly one and it may seem like over the top, but basically you have to be the tattletale. You have to tell every single time they poke you under the table. Because then it's like there's no point in poking you anymore. Yep. So that way they don't get to that 10 where they're actually getting you to where you're going to explode.
Yep. Good stuff. Mark.
Again, again, this sometimes the phenomena is like, someone comes into my office and says, you know what, you're a effing lousy therapist. And I'm like, you know what, you're right. Some days I really suck at this. Now we're in opposition, we're opposite each other. But if you were sitting at my right hand, my right side, what kind of things do you think I should say? What kind of things, what better questions do you think? So now I've changed the dynamic from we're in opposition to now the guy's at my right hand and we're pushing on the problem together. I don't know if that's useful, but what you just typed into the chat about narcissism, Peterson had a way of taking the sales out of a narcissist. It's just to look at them calmly and go, I know what you're doing and it's not working.
Yeah.
So those are a couple additional thoughts.
And if I remember right, did you mention earlier when we first started, when you brought this up about trying to help people out and having them react to it?
Yes. So I will often say things and not even often, I don't intentionally go after people and I don't intentionally start things. I'm not that kind of person. I don't intentionally poke the bear, and I will be as kind and as sincere as possible. And I like to think of it as offering. And I found myself over the last couple of weeks, even in my sincere offering, rather than talking, it felt like more I was having to end up defending myself, and rather than and saying, okay, clearly I'm activating them, rather than noticing that and sticking in it. I don't know if I should have noticed it and stepped out of it. And I don't know where those lines are, or perhaps I'm still learning those lines. And then I get the backlash of all these vicious comments coming toward me when I wasn't in that space. I didn't think I was in that space, yet somehow I found myself in that space. And the other thing that I did start to think was, and this is a little bit to what Holly was saying, or it made me think of it as Holly was talking, that I'm looking, or maybe it was Mark, I'm looking at the burning of an old identity, and that this is just the lag time, and this is just how it has to separate out, and I can move forward. Because sometimes I find that, God will do for you what you cannot do for yourself, or the universe will do for you what you cannot do for yourself. So rather than cutting somebody out and saying, I just don't think this is a quality such and such, rather than doing that, I find myself sitting in it and then watching the burning and then watching the fallout. And I'm like, okay, do I not take it personally? How else can I think of it? Because that to me is the most important, how I perceive it. And I want to be able to perceive it as it's okay. I will be okay. Does that make sense? I know it's kind of vague.
Holly's got an answer.
Oh, sorry, I thought TJ was gonna keep going. I guess I'll go. So another phrase I use a lot is, "Oh, thanks for showing me who you are." And then as soon as you get that, and once again, there's the difference between the narcissist and as Elijah says, we all have the narcissist in us at times. Are they in narcissist behavior? So it doesn't matter if they always are. Are they in this moment? Never explain, never defend, never discuss if someone's engaging in narcissistic behavior. And it sounds like you're dealing with that, quite frankly. So for example, basically you just communicate your boundary and it's no, yes, no, yes. So like, for instance, if they say, I need you to help me move on Thursday. And, it doesn't matter what you have no obligation to explain why you don't want to help them move. If you aren't going to help them move, you're not going to help them move. So you just say no. And if they say why, you say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it's not up for discussion. If you ask me again, I'm going to have to go no contact for 24 hours. And if they ask again, you go no contact for 24 hours. Because they will ask again. If they, because the whole point is I'm going to ask, because whenever you're asking, defending, whenever you're defending, explaining, you're communicating this boundary is up for negotiation. And it's not up for negotiation. And more importantly, they're using your own energy against you. They're basically trying to get you to go around. There's no explanation that they think is good enough.
Yeah.
There's no explanation they would ever accept. They're just trying to get you to wear yourself out so that you feel bad and you feel like you're defending and no explanation is good enough and you're using your own energy against yourself.
Do you think they're doing that intentionally? Like, do people know this?
I think some of them are doing it consciously, and I think some of them it's a learned behavior. But they've learned that that's what gets them their own way.
Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
Renee.
So maybe this is a little different of a take on it. Do you feel like they're holding you in contempt? Because I've dealt with this with some folks that I have to deal with on a regular basis. Do you feel like they're holding you in contempt? And if that's the case, it doesn't matter what you say.
There.
It doesn't matter. They're placing judgment. And so that's something to kind of just step out, because there's no winning at that point. And really, what can you do? You just kind of limit your interactions, be polite but firm, call out boundaries. But I mean, it is all about staying cool and as calm as possible. And the one thing when I'm dealing with situations like this, or with really anybody, the one thing I've noticed, confession through projection. Whatever they're saying to you, put up a mirror to their face, and they're talking to themselves. So whatever it is that's been triggered. And with that, I forget which podcast or YouTube video I caught that off of. But when that really sunk in, when anybody gets upset with me, it's like, oh, they're projecting their issues on me. I triggered something that they don't like in themselves. And because of that, they're attacking me for it because they don't want to see it. So.
Yep.
I love that. Thank you.
I've seen that quite a bit. The other one is, and I've had this happen to me a number of times, is unsolicited help. It can be a very triggering thing for a number of people. And for those of us that just like to help people, it can show up quite often. Offering unsolicited advice or unsolicited help, and it's amazing how you can be so pure in intention and have it taken in such a offset way. I've been lambasted a couple of times trying to help somebody out, and sure enough, they got offended. And I'm like, I was just trying to help. I'm like, all right, well, I only can be me. Okay, Lenore?
I feel like this happens at least with family or close friends. And that's where I find that I'm much more understanding, which is interesting when it comes to family. I will also lose my bananas depending on who and when it occurs. That being said, if it's like, okay, now we've been in it for 3 hours and now I'm done. Like my brain is totally taxed. But there was also, I think this is so strange when it happens with family. And I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Where does it come across that because you're family, you can be as vicious as you want? It's almost like this unconditional love piece gets taken advantage of. And it's like, no matter what, you're stuck with me and I can be as vicious as I want to you. And it's like, wait, what? So that one just always gets me. I don't know if other people run into that, but I've found that. P.S. I got to meet Renee in person last week or at HTL, and it was so wonderful. You weren't on last week, and I didn't get to announce that.
I promptly came back and got sick, and my husband is still in bed. So that seems to be my MO for Vegas, is to bring home whatever crud it is. I'm actually sounding okay now.
Too. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Leave it there.
You know what? Back in 2021, I brought back COVID, and Brian ended up spending 2 months in bed and on short-term disability.
Oh no.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what it is about Vegas, but
apparently it travels with you, Renee.
Yeah.
And Stephanie got norovirus, and it kicked her butt hard, real hard. So I got lucky.
And she was supposed to go on vacation with her family too.
Yep.
Holly.
I keep having thoughts about, so, we say we teach people how to treat us. And once we fall into patterns, the patterns we've had forever are the patterns we will continue to have unless we break the pattern. But one thought I had is, okay, it isn't okay for people to just treat each other viciously because they're family. But if it is, you are just as right to be vicious with your boundaries. Not that I'm recommending you be vicious. I recommend you be ruthless with them, but not vicious with them. But even if you were to be vicious with them, there's if it's okay for them to be vicious with you for something that's not a boundary and toxic behavior, it for sure is okay for you to be vicious with your boundaries back. So it's clear, it's all about the double standard. Usually when you're dealing with somebody who's being toxic with you, they'll say any excuse, and family is a very common one. I'm allowed to treat you this way because you're family. But if you were to treat them the exact same way, they wouldn't be okay with it. So if they're not okay with you treating them back the exact same way, it's clearly not a thing. It's just an excuse they're using. And the only reason it's working is because it's a pattern that you've let work for years and years and years. But it's amazing how quickly you can retrain somebody. Now, you have to be okay with walking away. They may say, you know what? I only want to be in a relationship with you if you let me control you, if you let me abuse you. But most people, once you set those boundaries and you follow through with the consequences and they realize you're serious about it, it's amazing how many people will adjust and say, you know what? I didn't realize how vicious I was being until you called me out on it and until you followed through with the consequences. You know what? Maybe I do need to be a little bit better.
Yep. And family is one of the more challenging ones, especially if they're older, uh, because we're taught to respect the family and all of the above. But yeah, I've had a few of them where I finally had to just go, I don't know who you think I am, but I'm not that person. So try somewhere else. Mark.
Sometimes, like I said, family interactions, and we do it too. Um, you know, sometimes, Lenore, it's a knife fight, but sometimes it's a mud fight. Okay, so you know, you throw a lot of mud around, and after all the mud's been thrown, it all washes off, and you guys are okay afterwards. It's when it becomes toxic, it becomes a knife fight. So some families, like I said, they get together on uh, holidays, and it's a big mud fight. They throw all kinds of hurtful things around, and they feel, because that's how they were conditioned, that yeah, you can say anything you want and you'll be okay tomorrow. So but that's the determination. Is this something toxic? Is this a knife fight, or is it a mud fight? And sometimes we can be vicious and hurtful because, of course, everybody's entitled to my opinion. um, and they might not see it that way. But like I said, sometimes, we want the best for, family, and sometimes, we have to say some painful truths, I think, to try to get our point across. And other people feel, again, if it's family, you feel like, well, we're still going to be family after I say my painful truth. So yeah, again, my mom was brutally honest. And it cost her a lot of relationships, but she had no filter. But you knew what you were getting into. So yeah, sometimes with family, you just got to, you have to determine, is this a mud fight and we're going to be good tomorrow, or is this a knife fight, and that can be a toxic thing.
Well, you listen here, young man. If I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
I'll beat it out of you.
Holly.
Sorry, I keep having a million thoughts on this. Another thing I'll add to is, and I'm sure we've said this before, but there's the family that you're related to by blood, and then there's the family that you choose.
Yep.
And the family you're related to by blood, they have a role in your life. But if they don't earn the right to be with, the full version of you, sometimes this is a hard thing for us to learn. We want to share our whole version of us. This is who we are growing up. And sometimes they're not entitled to know that part of us.
Yep.
And so sometimes it's wise to say, you know what, you have earned, and this is kind of, I call it the Zen principle, or also the casting pearls before swine. It's I want to be able to cast my pearls before you, but you're not in a place where you're even able to understand this. And I'm mad at you for not being able to understand it, where really I have to recognize, I've got to have compassion on your inability to understand this, and recognize there's a time and a place where I show this side of myself. And this just doesn't happen to be that place. So I need to save that part of myself for the places where it's appropriate, and then show the parts of myself that are appropriate in these circumstances.
Good stuff. Lenora.
What I was gonna say was, I think especially if it's in a family dynamic, it might be that piece that Renee was sharing about holding somebody in contempt, and that can definitely build over time. And I agree about, not showing certain aspects because they quite literally can't understand certain aspects. But something that I really learned over this summer, and dear God, we're still a month to go in the like June, July, August, was to protect your energy. And I was having a conversation with somebody at HTL, and they were teaching me some clearing techniques, but also to really notice how you feel when you walk away from somebody consistently. So, if somebody gets upset and has a bad moment, and I do my very best to be very clear, like if I'm upset at somebody and I'm with somebody else, I will say, no, it has nothing to do with you. And, it's my frustration, even though I'm frustrated around you, it's not at you or it's not about you. And I'm going to do my best to bring it over this way or to process it or something else. And something that I really noticed was, how do you feel after your interactions with other people on a consistent basis? Do you walk away happy, joyful, excited? Do you walk away drained? Do you walk away tired? What is that like for you? And if you're finding that you're walking away drained, and it did not hit me until this weekend that to truly value how intentional I am with the way that I live. I don't intentionally go out and seek disagreements. I intentionally don't go on certain things online, because I know how much I care about my frequency just as much as I care about my food. And to really pay attention with that, because I do believe our energy is precious. And I tell you guys, I love you to pieces. I think about you all during the week, and then I walk away from Triple T and I literally go to bed thinking how lucky I am to be a part of this group and how much better you all make my week. And it's a very wonderful thing. So when I walk away from you all, I'm very happy, even when certain conversations might be difficult for us.
Mark.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, like I said, Lenora asked me if I was calling her crazy, and we're all crazy, Lenora. Just some of us are better at hiding it than others. But I found another quote, and this one's from Cat in the Hat. Not the other one I had was from another cartoon, but this one was.
Are we bringing back quotes? Yay!
Yeah, well, the cat. We can't help that," said the cat. "We're all mad here."
Yep.
Very good one.
I resemble that remark.
We analyze our madness.
We're not mentally ill. We enjoy every moment of our madness.
Yes. Well, do we have time for, do we have one more question or topic to throw in the mix? Silence.
I mean, I totally do, but I didn't know if anybody else wanted to offer anything or ask anything.
Somebody got to bring one up. We got some time left.
I see Mark pointing. Is it, or am I good to ask it?
I
Or
got
does
nothing.
somebody want?
Go for it.
Oh,
I got
okay,
nothing
okay.
today.
So the word nostalgia. How do you think of it? What do you think of it? I'm going to intentionally be vague. When I used to think of the word nostalgia, I would think of very positive experiences. Like, to me, 80s music is nostalgic. Love 80s music. And it'll bring me right back to a memory, pull me right into a trance. But there's also less than positive nostalgia. So I was curious to your thoughts. What do you think of it? Do you like the word? All sorts of stuff. Unleash.
Holly.
I could be wrong on this, but so there's two things that pop into my head when I think of nostalgia. First of all, I think nostalgia is just a fancy way of people who are not hypnotists describing hypnotic anchors from early experiences.
Oh.
And obviously some of those could be positive. Some of those could be less than positive. And I think that you can also use those. So you can use those or you can clear those. So, when we look at that, so then the other thing that pops into my head, of course, is that's what we're tapping into when we do the 3 magic questions. So for those who don't know the 3 magic questions, I'd always said them before, but the first one is location, occasion. You're getting people out of their head talking about what's going on around them. And then the second question is, career or passion, something they're passionate about. But then if you go to that third level, it's, positive early childhood experiences, which is your nostalgia or your hypnotic anchors from early that are positive. So if it's positive, keep in mind you're tapping into 2 things. You're tapping into something positive, but you're also tapping into something that's in the timeline. And so, it's a way not only to tap into a feeling, bring up those feelings, bring up those experiences, but you're also making it so somebody feels like they've known you forever, as we've discussed, with that. And the reason you're able to do that is because it's a way to tap into an anchor early in someone's timeline, which I think is kind of cool.
Great description. Mark.
Again, when you said that word, I got an image, and I got it in 3D or 4D with sights, sounds, and when I was very young, right down the street from my Aunt Lily's house, there was an old country store, and I'd always go down there, and I'd walk in there, and they had it was like an entire, Sears, within a very small number of walls. It was piled to the ceiling, had all this old stuff, and the smell was just amazing. I don't know what the combination of it was, but I got very, for a moment when you said that word, that's where my mind went. It was to that old country store in East Kingston, New Hampshire. And like I said, but so definitely associated with something wonderful, full-blown memory thank you, by the way, that I didn't know I had stored that in high fidelity, but the sights, the sounds, the smell was the big thing, and I figured, that was in the back room under a couple boxes, and that when you said that word, that's what popped out, and I was like, oh yeah, I haven't thought about that in decades. Thank you. So it was a very positive thing, that word.
Cool. And what popped in my mind was shareable anchors. And you see all these nostalgia things like antique car shows, and talk about nostalgia, and you get these groups of people together that are sharing all of these anchors that are relatable. Some of us actually remember back when MTV had music on it. And I just saw a few eyes light up. They're like, oh, yeah, there's some nostalgia there as well.
Video killed the radio star.
Yep. And that's where, just like Holly very accurately pointed out, number 3 in 3 magic questions is tapping into nostalgia and things that make you smile, like when Fran shows up. And I think it's important for people to find that shareable nostalgia, because it is those common attachments that we understand, those common anchors, and they can be very macro and they can be very micro. There can be family nostalgia when you talk about grandma's house. There can be, family nostalgia about the old homestead. Holly.
I meant for you to continue finish what you're saying. I guess I'll just say it really fast. Also, Jordan Peterson talks about, our society be based on a kind of shared story. And I think a lot of those shared stories are basically the nostalgia building on the nostalgia. So, maybe biblical stories or nursery rhymes or, fairy tales are all the nostalgia of the past basically being turned into the cultural. So you could take a quote from a song or a story or whatever, and everybody instantly knows what you mean without having to tell the whole story. And that could be very powerful too.
Yep. And music is huge in that department. Being a DJ for 18 years, I've watched the power of stuff where you can do things like all of a sudden my 80s people went
We will rock you.
Uh-huh. And it was funny because even yesterday when I had the guy here, the young 25-year-old, and I said, "What kind of music you listen to?" And he goes, "I listen to everything." I went, "Oh, hang on." So I put my music on Pandora on shuffle, and I said, "You're going to hear some stuff that you probably haven't heard." And some polka music came on. And I said, "You ever heard this before?" And he goes, "No." I said, "What nationality do you think this is?" And he goes, "Mexican?" I said, "Nope." I said, "German." He goes, "Really?" I said, "Yeah." And yet you were smiling while you were listening to it. Because the music, polkas and stuff, were written when they were going through some of the hardest times and they needed that nostalgia to have uplifting music for them to have something to celebrate with. Lenora.
What do you consider, and I know we're getting into words or semantics, when you see things and they bring up things that you don't want to think about. So they maybe they're anchors, or they quite literally put you in a bad mood, or you're carrying the emotional weight of something because you see that memory or that anchor. Do you consider that an anchor? Do you consider things like that? Basically, the things that drive you nuts, or the things that you carry and you're thinking, God, I wish that didn't bother me so much, and they pop into your brain during the day. What do you call those? I see Elijah saying, yes, it's considered an anchor. Okay. Yep. Would you consider the anchor the emotional weight of something?
You can use the word trigger if you prefer.
Okay.
But they are essentially the same thing.
Okay, I see how I put an anchor. Thank you.
In terms of, sorry.
No,
I
go,
kind
go.
of jumped in ahead of the people who raised their hands politely. Apologies. Good morning.
Oh my gosh, I'm so offended.
Oh, did you get triggered?
Well, did you get triggered?
Did your anchor fire off?
No, man, just listen to Elijah's voice. Takes all away.
Yes.
So there is what we call, in this case, we're talking about something you hear. So it would be what I call an AK synesthesia, an auditory kinesthetic synesthesia, meaning the auditory anchor is fired, and then an entire chain of things happens in your unconscious, and the last part of the chain is the kinesthetic feeling, which is you feeling bad. And that's not a suggestion. Please don't feel bad. I'm just saying that in this regard, when you say something you hear triggers you, it would be what we call an AK negative, a little minus next to the K, indicating it's a bad feeling. If it was K plus, it would indicate it was a positive feeling. So AK negative synesthesia. The problem that we have is that we don't know the chain. The chain is unconscious. It's like an entire train flies through the station, and the first carriage of the train is the auditory trigger. Then you have all the other carriages, which is the unconscious train, and then the caboose, which is the final carriage of the train, which is the negative feeling. And we are only aware of the first car and the last car and nothing what happens in between. And so one of the things that I learned from one of my mentors was how to make the rest of that chain conscious temporarily, change it or inoculate it or solve it, resolve it, dissolve it, whatever you want to call that, and then set it back on autopilot, so that the same external audio trigger will now cause a different kinesthetic feeling. Now, in order to teach you how to do that, it would take me probably 3 hours or more, so I can't do that right now. But if you're interested in such things, reach out to me. I'm happy to share it with anybody.
Yes. That goes for anybody that's listening on the call, watching this video. Reach out to any of us, and we know how to get a hold of Elijah. Mark.
Yeah, what Elijah put earlier in the chat was the nostalgia. It's 90% positive and 10% bittersweet. And and again, and I was thinking things that we, certain songs, correct, and then when we hear one, it generates that chain. But it's like, does anybody really miss, payphones or, newspaper boxes on every corner, mailboxes on every corner. These are nostalgic items, and sometimes it could be bittersweet because you don't see them anymore in your, current environment. So, but as far as negative associations to the past, I said there, that, I don't know if there's, a category or a place where we put things from the past that might trigger a less than positive chain of memories. But yeah, I don't, like I said, but I started thinking about all the things that I used to see when I was much, much younger, and they were just normal, and now you don't see them anymore. So that's the bittersweet part.
Yep. Michael.
Superman from 1974 misses the phone booths. Y'all remember Christopher Reeves? It's like, oh, and he jumped through a car because there wasn't a phone booth. Anyway, Lenora, back to your question, and kind of a couple ways to hit this a little bit. First of all, when you go to a doctor, they call it a practice for a reason because they're practicing on us. And life is a practice. And so every day we're practicing. So when these events happen, you can practice a few different scenarios. One, kind of like TJ talks about and Dr. David talked about, where you step out and you look at yourself, looking at yourself, looking at yourself with this happening. And then it's like layers away and it's more diffused, and it's all about choices, and we choose how to respond or to react. And, I know you're pretty awesome, so you can choose to react any way you want to. I'm just teasing. Respond any way you want to. So.
You're all so awesome. Thank you. You probably will hear more about this, but to be determined. Thank you. Thank you.
And back to nostalgia of time manipulation, as I've said on here many times, because here we are at the top of the hour, and it's hard to believe 2 hours goes by this quick every Tuesday night, and yet there are times when, like I say, if you want to make a minute seem to last forever, do a plank. So, unfortunately, it's time for me once again to say goodbye. Thank you guys for showing up, making this platform more than just me babbling on. I appreciate you guys' input, your support, your love, your energies, all that you provide from all over this crazy rock that we're living on, spinning through space and pretending we know what we're doing. I want to thank you guys so much for your time. As I will always say, I can't figure out how to reproduce it and hand it back to you, but as soon as I do, you'll be the second to know. Until then, take care. Love y'all. Live a great life. Hopefully see you back here in 7.
Sounds fantastic, man. Everybody have a great day. Nice seeing y'all. Peace out. Good vibes.
Good friends, good vibes. Good night.
Good answer.
That's a good one, Mark.